All right, everybody. Hey, welcome to day 2 of the Note Investing Challenge. We have a couple things that we'll be talking about tonight. One will definitely be using laneguide.com. We'll go through that. We'll walk how Lane Guide is a great tool for you. And then we'll also spend time going through how to set up and market via email blast and why email is one of the most important things that you can do for your note business. So really excited, guys, as always, to have you all here tonight. Got a lot of great stuff we'll dive into. But first, let's dive into the first part here. All righty. All right, so using Lane Guide to find bank contacts. This is the part of day 2. When I started as a note investor back in 2008, it's hard to believe it goes back there. Lane Guide had been around for years. Lane Guide's been around actually about 40 years. And what Lane Guide is, it is a tracking tool. It's actually a guy out of Vegas formerly. Now he's out of Dallas, Richard Lane. He started basically a service to track who and what bought which and which banks. So you could track banks by using Lane Guide. Now, laneguide.com is just the automated version or the online version of the old manual that he used to have. Now, laneguide.com is something that I use on a weekly basis. I will tell you right now, laneguide.com is not 100% accurate. It's like with anything else that you use, the minute it gets updated, especially with the amount of changes in the secondary markets, banks being bought and sold, people coming and going, it is not going to be 100% accurate. But it is a great way, as I say, to proverbial prime that pump, to build you a list, relatively inexpensive, that you can start marketing to and start reaching out to start getting deals sent to you. Now, Lane Guide is not really expensive. It's about $165 a year. That's one of the few things that we'll talk about through this 20-week period or 20 different topics on finding over the next couple of weeks that you'll actually pay for it. But who would not want to have a list of names, phone numbers, and emails, or basically a Rolodex where you could reach out to asset managers and try to find the right person involved, or at least the right number? I think we would all raise our hands and say, yes, they want to do it. My question on here, for those that are joining us here, anybody that's using Lane Guide right now or has used it in the past, raise your hands here in the chat roll if you're watching this on Zoom. I'm trying to keep track on the Facebook group. Trying to see what's going on here, if it'll let me do it, but actually it's showing us as something to be sold, so I don't get what's going on here. But anyway, so a couple people raised their hands, which is good. So let's see who raised their hands. So we had Mika's used it. Okay, good. Anybody else used it here? No. All right. Laura Blanc, no surprise there. Laura, I think you'll agree. Mika, you probably agree that it's a pretty good tool. It's not the best tool, but it's a great tool to really help you get started. And we're going to talk about not only using Lane Guide, but why we talk about it tonight is it really goes hand in hand with what we'll be talking about on the day 2 of the funding side here in a little bit. All right. So laneguide.com, a really great tool. I'm actually going to log into mine and kind of walk you through how we use it on a regular basis. All right. So Lane Guide, one of the greatest tools I think is out there. Like I said, it's pretty inexpensive. Let me log into this. I don't get paid to promote it. I'll just tell you that. All right, so let me share my screen here with you guys. New share, Lane Guide it is. All right, so laneguide.com here, pretty awesome tool. Been around since 1957. And one of the most valuable things that you will find that you'll use the most is the search bar at the top, a name search, and then the search toolbox on the left-hand side, okay? Now, like I said, Lane Guide has tracked who's bought who, what bank got bought what. Obviously came in very handy over a dozen years ago. They still track it, okay? Now, one of the most important things that you can do and use is go over here to the search toolbox. Now, you'll see a variety of things here on the left-hand side. A lot of these are for the mortgage industry that you're not going to be using, okay? But the most important thing, and I only say this, I want to clarify it, this very first part where it says REO Asset Manager. Now, yes, I've said before that you're not going to be targeting REOs, but what Lane Guide does is they actually lump note and REO asset managers in kind of the same bundle. Now, the beautiful thing about this is it allows for you to really pull a list of residential and commercial stuff asset managers in the states that you like to invest with. And literally, if you pull like the top 8 to 12 states, well, that's what I pulled, you're going to pull somewhere between 4 and 5 states, probably starting off with, or 2 to 3. But it's going to give you people that are lending in that state and a lot of good contacts to reach out. Now, if the names are wrong or the numbers are wrong, guess what? You've got a warm name and a warm number to reach out to other people at that bank via LinkedIn and other things like we talked a little bit about last night. Kudos to those of you too who took a little bit of action, started doing some stuff on your LinkedIn profile. Great to get some connections. Make sure you're posting in the group as well your LinkedIn profile into the thread we have going in the Facebook group. But anyway, you have the REO Asset Manager search. We'll spend some time on there. Advanced lender name, performance dashboard. We'll be doing REO portfolio analyzer, lender trustee lookup. Not really that big. Verification deposit. You're not going to really use that much. Mortgage-backed fund servicers. We'll look a little bit of that. Wholesale program search, lender trace, successor history that kind of pops in. Findroutingnumbers.com. You're not really going to use that. Industry track trends. Not really going to use it. Lending type search. You will use that. Okay. Primary classification search, okay. A reverse search, maybe a little bit, and the Lane Guide Home. I would go to Lane Guide Home and use it. You have a lot of note buyers that use it. And what's great is it gives you some tracking on some different things, okay? It gives you definitely some tracking on what a bank's portfolio have based off last year. They haven't or maybe they haven't updated the quarters yet for this year. But anyway, so let's just look at the REO asset managers. Let's go straight to the most useful tool. This is worth just the $165 a year. This is it worth right here. Okay, click on REO Asset Manager search. You pick up the REO property type. Let's just say residential notes. You can either residential, commercial, and you're going to pick a state. We'll just say Texas. Okay, just go down here to Tejas. Statewide, yep, county. Show primary department. Here's where you're going to want to change. You're not going to want to look at REO and asset manager. This is where you're going to want to change this to the special assets department. Remember last night we talked about searching for special asset managers on LinkedIn. So you click on there, company type, you can change this to banks, mortgage lenders, credit unions, asset management companies, government agencies, loan servicers, or finance companies. Here's the best thing, just click on banks, okay? Just click on banks, all right? And we'll hit the search. It'll take a second here. And now, lo and behold, see what's going on here. See? I'm just trying to comment to people here. Try again. All right. So now you have a list of people that are supposedly lending in Texas of banks. And you can see here, it's a pretty good sized list. All right. Boom, look at all that, basically from A to Z now, or A to W, Wells Fargo. Now, some of these banks you're not going to deal with, but you see Academy Bank, Kansas City, Missouri, Mr. Dixon, and a toll-free number to call him. Now, what's great is you start looking at some of these, like Affiliated Bank out of Bedford, Texas, Gary Graham, Affiliated Bank, all right? And an email, ggraham@affiliatedbank.com, all right? Yay! And a phone number, all right? 817-589-0544. You can also see they've got a website, a lender track. We can look at that stuff. REO Commercial Bank tells you the amount of total assets out there. Now, some of these numbers, I would not trust the US REO stuff. We're not really worried about that. The idea here, more than anything else, is just to create the list. All right. Now, the thing that's the one thing about Lane Guide that I dislike is it doesn't allow you to like download this. Okay. What you have to do is basically copy it all over and drop it into a WordPad doc or an Excel spreadsheet. And then a lot of these cells are unmerged. So I would spend some time with a VA or spend some time if you're really bored. All right. I'm just going to go over here to an Excel spreadsheet, a blank one. And I'm going to paste it in, and I'm going to share it here in just a second so you can see what it looks like. You see, not a very fun thing, okay? Yes, Dave, you hit the nail right on the head there, bud. Dave asked, wonder if you could hire someone from Fiverr or something to scrape the data from this list. Yes, that's what I would do if I were you. Go to Fiverr, go to, pay 10, pay 15 bucks, send this list over, do this for you. Don't give them your login. But log in here and have them scrape it for, because that's what you'd be basically do. Each basically lender is about 6 to 7 cells. Some are merged. Takes a little bit of a while, but yeah, pay somebody on Fiverr to go in here, because now you've got a bank name, city, state, don't need their license number, contact name, contact email, and guess what? The contact phone number, which is great. So you've got a phone or an email and a name. And if those are wrong, guess what? That's okay. Find out who the new person is. Now you said, I used to work with great Mr. Dixon on special assets. So this is a beautiful thing. Now, if I just doing that, we say each one's roughly 7. Let's see how big this spreadsheet is. So right now it's down to 524. So basically if I take 6, it's 6 cells. Basically it's about 90. Oh, what is that? 100 would be 600. So 80, 86, 87 banks right there with Texas. Now that's great. Boom, that's pretty good for just Texas. Now what would I do next? I would go back, all right? I would go back to Lane Guide and pull a second state. So I would look at your top 3, top 5, top 6 states, all right? And that's what I would do. I would go back and forth and pull your top 6 states and do exactly like we just did on Lane Guide, all right? And do it for the next one. So we did Texas, all right? That's great. Now you're gonna have some crossover, and that's okay. That's why you have but I would pull these lists, send them all, put them all in one spreadsheet, and then send it all over to your guy, your virtual assistant on Fiverr to scrub it for you. Now we did Texas. We're going to look at, let's just say my next favorite state, we'll just say is Ohio. Okay. Statewide. Primary is the special assets department. I would not waste time doing like, I wouldn't do credit unions. I would just stick to banks. Okay. And hit search. Boom. Give a second. So now you see Academy Bank is right up on there, but now you got some different people. Wells, US Bank, it's Fidelity, Synovus Bank, which used not to be on there, Northern Trust Companies. So you see, you get a whole nother bit of list. You get some crossover, but you get some new banks that weren't on the first list. And that is the beautiful thing I love about Lane Guide, is literally you could pull in less than 5 minutes once you get logged on by going to the REO Asset Manager search and doing a search there by state. You can literally pull some great stuff for you. Brad asked a good question. Why not credit unions? We just don't see a lot of loans to credit unions, Brad. They're just not going to be holding on to a big portfolio. Spend your time with the banks. You might jump on, do some servicing companies. Let's look at servicing companies. I haven't pulled that in a while. So let's click on REO Asset Manager. Let's look at Texas again. Statewide, Special Assets Department, and then let's look at loan servicers and hit search. So it pops up there. So you got basically 2 servicers. That's not accurate because there's a lot more servicers in Texas than just 3. All right, we'll talk about a little bit about that tomorrow night on some ways we can look on licensing websites to find bankers, mortgage bankers, and companies that are doing business in Texas or other states out there for you. Okay, so that's what I would stick to. I stick to the banks. Wouldn't really spend your time on the credit unions. They're not going to have a big portfolio. Credit unions aren't usually doing a lot of mortgages to begin with anyway. But Lane Guide's a great thing. Now, here's another tool that I love is this name search up here. Okay, the very top when you log in. Let's say you're looking for a particular bank. Maybe you see on a foreclosure list a bank that's got 5 or 6. Maybe it's not like Bank of America, but it's got a smaller bank name that pops up. So let's just type in. Somebody want to give me a bank name. Somebody want to share something in the chat roll of a specific bank, not the bigger bank, Bank of America, Chase, Citibank, none of those. But give me a bank, something that you guys might be big enough but may not recognize. It may be just in your state. I can pick one. All right, first one here is SunTrust, Donald Ellington. Okay. SunTrust. We'll type that in. SunTrust. Okay. SunTrust Bank. All right. So when we type in SunTrust, you see what happens. Okay. All the names for SunTrust. Okay. SunTrust Capital Markets. Okay. That might be a good one to look at. BB&T Bank, branch, SunTrust Bank, Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, what you have down at the bottom down here, you have all these others that have used SunTrust, but they've been sold at some sort of bank. Okay. Now you have SunTrust Capital Markets. This is a bigger here. Or Truist Bank. They changed their name, I guess. Okay. So what I like to do is look at the bigger banks. So SunTrust Mortgage out of Richmond, Virginia, or Truist Bank, or you can type in SunTrust Bank here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So let's click on that one. Okay. See, also known as BB&T, AK, also known as SunTrust Bank, also known as Banking and Trust, because Truist Bank has merged those. Okay, BB&T, SunTrust, and Branch Banking and Trust. Those basically merged. So now you've got SunTrust Loan Servicing, SunTrust Mortgage Loan Service, Susquehanna Loan Servicing Department, SunTrust Special Assets. That's what we're looking for right there. We're not looking for loan servicing. Remember, we're looking for the Special Assets Department, the Secondary Marketing, the Whole Loan Trading Desk, or the Chief Credit Risk Officer's Desk. Remember, we talked about that yesterday. It's the same thing here. So SunTrust Special Assets Department. Let's click on there. It's out of Atlanta. All right. Now you have a direct phone number that goes to them. 404-588-7122. Now, that may be working, it may not. A lot of times, we'll see a different name. So we had somebody else at Fifth Third. It was Stephen S. or Fifth Third. So let's click there, see what pops up for Fifth Third. I'd spell it right. Oh, Fifth Third. Fifth pops up there. All right. Third bank, major bank here. You see the major bank is the house, the cars, stuff like that. So let's click Fifth Third Bank, wholesale mortgage, Fifth Third Bank, Fifth Third Real Estate Capital Markets. I might be checking out, that's probably their REO department. Fifth Third Savings Bank or Fifth Third Bank. I would click on this one here because it's the major one with the star. All right. Mortgage Loan Servicing Department. You're not going to call them to buy notes. Northern Region Consumer Loan, not going to call them. Real Estate Loan Servicing, not going to call them. SBA, Lost Mit, no. Foreclosure REO department, no. Commercial REO department, no. These are the REOs, so they're not going to be the department to call about buying notes. So on this case, even though they don't have a special assets department, I would call then the main office. Call the main office and try to track down somebody in special assets or secondary marketing. Okay. Not every bank is going to show their special assets department on here, which I wish they did. It would be so easy. All right. Now, over the left-hand side here of the bank, you can see kind of the profile information, the performance dashboard. We click on the performance dashboard. I'm not sure when this is. See, they haven't updated it for the fourth quarter yet. But you see what's nice, based on the Q3 of last year, they had 33 million in REO, 140 million in delinquents, and another another 39 roughly billion. That a B? Yeah, it's a B in other real estate loans out there. I know, yeah, but there you can see. So you can see that that's a little bit older performance history, stuff like that. It's kind of nice. Now, if somebody else, another show you an example of another one. Sometimes you come across like Bank of the West is one that I use. I mean, you're familiar with them, but the good example of showing what you might see. So Bank of the West out of San Francisco. I'm gonna click here on their license number. Take me to their profile. Same thing. You see the REO Loan Service Center, the Consumer Loan Servicing Department, the Special Assets Department, right there, okay? But if you keep scrolling down, corporate headquarters, and those of you that are looking for commercial notes, guess what? Commercial Special Assets Department. Now, notice number 949-622-6024. 6024, if we go up here, it's a different phone number. Now, what's nice, the Special Assets Department, if you click on here, more contact details. Martha.torres@bankofthewest.com. You have an email and obviously a direct name, which is nice. Okay, if we go back to the commercial, it should be Dana. It was Dana.White originally, used to work for him. I think she has moved on or got married because her name has changed. Where is it here? Commercial, there we go. More contact details. And you see Dana.White at Bank of the West. Miss Dana White, yep, sure. She got married and her name changed. But anyway, still names that you can drop. Even if Dana White's moved on and Martha Torres has moved on, they work next door to each other, basically, we found out from talking with them. But that's a great way to add them to a list that you can reach out to on a regular basis to start the process of reaching out to asset managers. Now, here's the big thing. I know many of you don't want a dollar for dollars. That's okay. We'll talk about that later on. But many of you still can pull a list and can upload them to an email or send an individual email to them or reach out to them. Go see if they're over on LinkedIn and connect with them on LinkedIn and send them an invite there like we did a little bit yesterday. Okay. So that's one of the great things that I think will get you started, get you in that familiarity. You can do this part-time. You can do this after hours, on the weekend. As long as you've got power, you can do this. And it's one of the easiest things to do. Now, you pulled a list of Arizona, California, Texas, Florida, Illinois. You pulled in the top like 5 or 6 states out there. Guess what? You're going to find a lot of stuff. I don't know if you looked at, there was an article that came out on DS News just recently talking about the states that have the most amount of distressed debt. And the 2 Bs, Beaumont, Texas had the most number of, largest ratio of defaults and foreclosures, and Birmingham, Alabama. So if I was an investor diving into the area, that's what I go. I would look at Texas, I would look at Birmingham, I would look at the like 4 or 5 states that they said there was an increase and look in those particular counties. But that's the nice thing. Now you can also do another thing that you do a little bit more generic here. Some people will do this. When I first started out, I was dialing for dollars. I would pull a list and just dial for dollars. Yes, I would pull the special asset managers list. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you pull that list, there's probably gonna be emails that are bad as people moved on. So when you send stuff out, it's okay if they bounce. It works a little bit better in your favor because if you take the time to find the next person, or now if it did bounce, you now know the setup of that person's email, Dana.White, right? If you say John Smith at Bank of the West, you can probably say John.Smith at bankofthewest.com if he's the vice president of special assets or secondary marketing that you find on LinkedIn. Now, for those of you that are going to be targeting specific states, or specific asset classes, you can do a lending type search here, okay? One of the things we use, so we can lending type search. We pick the state, let's just say Florida, okay? Florida, okay? Lenders known to lend in the state or lenders with offices in the state. I always say lenders known to lend in the state because they'll give you a bigger number, okay? Now pick the category. Maybe you want to do auto loans. You're not going to do auto loans, but let's say residential 1 to 4. And then you could say residential subprime, residential construction. I would say residential subprime. Okay, click on that. The lending method, retail or wholesale. I would do either. Okay, what does that mean? Lending wholesale. Basically they're taking mortgage brokers from across the country and they're doing loans. Retail means it's like a full bank branch. You got to go into a retail branch to get a loan. Do either. It's fine. Now what you want to do is lending genre. You want to change it. You don't want to be independent lenders. You want it to be regulated entities here and hit search. Now, guess what you'll find? Drum roll. As it's pulling the list. So there you go. Now you have a huge list of banks lending in that state. All right. Some big banks, some small banks, like you see, like where is it? Comerica, Coastal Bay Mortgage. These are gonna be small. Okay. Citibank. All right. Yeah. Citibank's a big thing, right? We just look on, you can see the credit union. This puts banks and credit unions in there. Let's just click on Central Bank here in Florida. Right. And they have 1 branch office in 1 state. You see, they don't really give you an opportunity to filter it by bank size. But now you get the main contact information and you'd be ready to rock and roll. Now you can also see, look at their performance dashboard from last year, and you can see they had only 60,000 in REOs, Q3, and other real estate loans, 155 million. So not really non-performing. That's why those smaller banks are harder to buy notes from. You want to look at bigger banks. All right. So let's go back to our list. And this is what I used to do. I would literally pull a list like this and I would just print it out. I'd get rid of my computer and I would dial for dollars on my sheets of paper and make notes. And I would get transferred a lot, okay? Anthony asked the question, would you be using the same process for finding performing notes? Yeah, Anthony, you could ask, hey, I'm looking to buy your non-performing notes. And then also if you've got any performing notes for sale. Most banks aren't going to sell their performing notes. You might find performing notes in some of your hedge funds and things like that, which we'll cover later on. But you could find it more so on performing notes. You'll probably find that for connecting with other note investors on LinkedIn, like we talked a little bit about yesterday. Okay. So yeah, you could use this if you're looking for performing notes. non-performing. The thing about performing notes from banks, especially right now, you might see some scratch and dent loans, SND they call it, okay? Scratch and dent loans are loans they've originated that might be missing a signature, or the borrower's credit score changed after closing before it got sold, or they were late the first month and then they had to basically, the lender had to buy it back from the parent bank. You have to be careful about buying performing notes because they'll send you performing notes, but with low interest rates right now at 2-3%, it's going to be harder for you to make any money on a performing note, and they're not going to take a 50% discount on a performing note, Anthony. Does that make sense for you? So I wouldn't necessarily use this strategy for performing notes. I would work with other note investors to find performing notes. I mean, you could do this, you may find something, but it's be much more effective on the non-performing side of the ballgame. Okay. Now, one other thing here, we talk a little about commercial notes. Let's talk about lending type search for commercial. Okay. Lending types, let's just say, once again, let's say Florida. And let's change it. Lenders known in land and state. And we'll change it to commercial. Commercial real estate. And let's go down here. Commercial reverse, we don't need that. Equipment financing, no. Commercial construction, that'll work fine. Retail or wholesale, either. And then let's say regulated entities or banks, exactly. Hit search. It'll pull up a pretty good list for you as well. There you go. First Manatee Bank. You've got a big list there as well. A lot of the same names out there, okay? Century Bank, let's just look at that one. Tampa, same thing, main office there, one bank in one state. So that's how I use LendGuide. I like using this, the REO asset manager search, to pull a list of asset managers to call out and start, my email blast and start my dialing for dollars off of that. That's the low-hanging fruit there for you to find some stuff. Have they been called? Some have been called, but honestly, not many people are dialing for dollars. A lot of people put them in emails and reach out to it, but they won't follow up. And the key to this, more than anything else, is kind of what we're going to talk about here on part two, the funding side of things. It's just as important to the follow-up marketing. Yes, I would reach out to them on LinkedIn. Yes, I would reach out to them via phone call, email, LinkedIn, and rinse and repeat. 80% of sales you can come up to the fifth contact. If you just call a bank once and that's it, they're not going to follow back up with you. They want to deal with those that follow up on a regular basis. If you've ever called an asset manager just once and then never followed back up, shame on you. Guess what? We've all done it before. You know how you solve that? Pick up the phone and call them again. All right. But LendGuide, like I said, $165. It's well worth it. I know some people have used, they've split they went splitsies, $80, and they used it. They have one login, but it's well worth it to kind of dive into it and use those things. The name search. All right. I use the name search quite often for specific banks. If I see foreclosure lists of banks that are foreclosing that I don't recognize the name, I'll jump on there and see how big they are. Lending type search, and then the REO asset manager search there for you. So questions about this? That's really what you're going to use LendGuide for more than anything else, is to go to REO asset manager, pull a list, put it in a spreadsheet, scrub it, put it in a clean name, email, phone number, bank, city, state, and be rocking and rolling that. One of the things that we did a couple years back, actually I think about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, is we did a banking blitzkrieg, we called it. And what we did is we had 25 of our mastermind members, our coaching students, and what we did over a 4-week period, or really a month-long period, is we gave people lists of banks. No, so we would pull a list for Georgia, pull a list for Florida, and give people 50 to 100 banks to call, and they would get a new list every week if they just provide their calling list. Now, if they stopped and didn't do it, then they don't get the whole list. But if they stuck around to the very end, they would get the list of contacts all combined. Now, out of those phone calls, we ended up with over 1,500 direct emails, and then roughly about 3,500 names and phone numbers of people out there, and a big chunk of LinkedIn profiling. So it's been a very, very powerful tool. It may be time to refresh that and do that again here in the near future. But anyway, LendGuide, a valuable tool. Yes, you're going to spend a little bit of money on marketing. This is one valuable source for you to find that marketing tool that works well for what you're doing now. So questions, comments, concerns on using LendGuide before we move on to our next lesson? You don't need the disc version. Just get the online version. If you're going to order it, just get the online version. It's the easiest way to do it. Okay. David asked a question. So when searching for notes, the official name to search for is special assets, but not REO. Okay. Here's the thing about LendGuide. LendGuide lumps notes and REO asset managers into one search engine on here. Okay. So David, you're going to use the search engine here on the side, the REO asset manager. Yes, some of those names you're pulling list will be REO asset managers. Other can be notes. They don't separate it off. They lump it all together. So if you're using LendGuide, yes, you're going to do the REO asset manager search, but you're not looking for REOs. We're looking for notes, but this is how that LendGuide does it, just for this one thing. Okay. Terry asked a good question. How does this compare to the FDIC website or even Distress Pro? I'll throw that in here. This is just tracking who buys who and phone numbers. It's not going to give you a percentage off the FDIC website. FDIC website, that's looking at specific banks, quarterly filings, and things like that. This is more who bought who. This is basically like the Rolodex for banks for you. Okay. FDIC website's not going to give you a lot of the internal numbers. They're going to give you the quarterly reports and what they have on file, what they're filing for the quarter, but they're not going to give you all the internal numbers and who got bought by who and other search stuff like this does here. Okay. That makes sense for you, Terry? Good question. David, does that make sense now for you? This is the one weird thing that you're going to embrace REOs. I mean, it's the one thing that aggravates me that he wouldn't split it up, but you know, for $165 a year, he's not making a lot of money from everybody on this. And it's a valuable tool to use that, you know, going forward. All right. He's crying about Tankerous guy too. I reached out to him a while back. Said, listen, I'm willing to send you the updated emails and stuff like that. So you'll cut me in for a piece of your membership. You don't want to do anything like that. I'm like, okay, never mind. Yes, David, when somebody talks about REOs, they mean actual real estate owned. That's what REO stands for. An REO stands for real estate owned. That means a bank has already foreclosed and taken the property back. There's no note attached to it anymore. Okay. We're looking for notes. And now if you're looking for REOs, and that's one of the things that you want to do, you want to deal with the note wrap, this would be a great way for you to use it as well, too, for you. Okay. As I said before, this is the tools that we'll go through you can use to help you find deals. Most of them are being geared toward notes, but a lot of them, the side product of notes is, guess what? Foreclosures, REOs, real estate, you know, bank foreclosures. Those are REOs there for you. It's a side product of what we do and what we see. There's oftentimes we'll get lists of REOs sent to us that come from a bank or a note investor, or if I'm bidding on a note and the bank has already done most of the heavy lifting, they're taking a foreclosure, they don't sell at the foreclosure auction. They'll often accept my bid on the note as a bid to buy the REO after they've gone through the auction. So it's kind of a win-win there for you. Okay. Any other questions before we move on to the next part of what we're talking about tonight? No, David, you're missing the point here. Once they foreclosed, they're going to sell the REO off. There's no note attached to it. The note they've already foreclosed and wiped out. They're not going to owner finance a property. They're going to list it with a realtor on the MLS and let them sell it off. There's not going to be another note to buy that property back. Okay. All right. Moving on. If you have a question, David, better yet, drop me an email and we can talk about it offline there for you. Okay.